And also a very big thanks to our local graphic novelist artist, Patsy, for doing this today. Thank you. And I'm just going to turn it over to her to talk about her graphic novel, Hāmākua Hero.
Okay, yay, I'm so glad to be here. And if any of you are my students, be sure to sign in that little yellow steno pad right there. And so I am Dr. Patsy Iwasaki with the English department here at UH Hilo. And I wrote Hāmākua Hero True Plantation story some time ago, and it's illustrated by Avery Berido, who was, a student here at HCC, Hawaii Community College, and at UH Hilo. And he did such a wonderful job. I always like to mention him because it wouldn't be what it is without him. So kudos to Avery, even he couldn't be here today. And thank you to librarian Amy Saxton for coordinating this talk, and also to Kilohana director Carla Hayashi and Corinne. Thank you so much. So let me get started here. And okay, so since we titled this a talk story session, I'm not gonna do what I do in my classes, which is to give a lecture and we go through the whole history of Japanese migration and immigration from Japan and all of that, and the whole plantation history. What we're going to do is run this talk story session maybe like a book club, So I'm gonna introduce a topic, and the topic is multiculturalism as portrayed in the graphic novel. And hopefully that will be a starting point to have discussion. So I'll introduce it, I'll talk about it, and then I want to hear from you, So that's what we're going to do. So that's why, it's a talk story session, not a lecture. But I do have slides because I can't help it. And I think it's good because, maybe not all of you read Hāmākua Hero. So then with the slides and my explanation, you'll all be able to engage in the discussion with me. So it's great to see so many familiar faces. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Okay, let me begin with this slide. This morning I had a cup of coffee, and maybe you did too, or maybe you did have a coffee just before this to stay awake, or you wish you had a coffee right now. But if you're like me, I use a lot of cream and a lot of sugar or honey, a sweetener. And that's why I have this slide of a nicely decorated coffee, because sugar is what brought Katsu Goto to Hawaii. And so I wanted to just start off my talk with this coffee so that you remember sugar is what brought Katsu Goto to Hawaii, and it is what created that multicultural society we have in Hawaii today. So here we go. The production of sugarcane was and its tremendous need for labor, created the multicultural society that we have in Hawaii today. Growing, harvesting, and processing sugarcane was very labor intensive. And this immigrant labor force, most of it, the majority came from Asia, from Japan, Korea, China, the Philippines, but also from the South Pacific and from Europe as well. And let's see. And then when we're talking about multiculturalism, I am so committed and passionate about cultural sustainability, global education, multicultural studies, cross-cultural relationships, all of the unsettling events that have happened in the past few years, the COVID-19 pandemic, conflict in Europe and elsewhere, and even with environmental disasters such as the wildfires on Maui, but all of that, I think has really, to me anyway, in my heart and my mind and my spirit, emphasized that we really need to work together. We are one human race living on one planet Earth, and in order to be sustainable and have a future, we need to talk to each other, to discuss things, and to give hope and a future for this entire planet. So speaking of multiculturalism and representations of culture, so we're going to talk about culture and culture as portrayed in Hāmākua Hero. And it's going to be discussed in broad terms, which includes the arts, heritage, knowledge, beliefs, customs, social behavior, societal norms, family norms, and other manifestations of a people group. And the first one I want to talk about is food culture. You know, because we can all relate to that, right? Because culture is really manifested in food. And let me get my notes here. So I'm going to talk about food as portrayed in the graphic novel, and then I want to open up the discussion and discuss food culture that you are experiencing too. So there are several pages that feature the New Year's holiday, which was and still is Japan's most celebrated holiday, with over a week of vacation. And that's saying something because the Japanese work a lot. And so for the New Year's holidays from December, let me use this little pointer. December, where did it go? Oh well, let me see. Where is that little? Okay, but it's held from December 20th to January 6th, so it's quite a long time for the holiday where schools are closed, businesses are closed, and they really take some time off to spend time with family. And many Japanese families serve a lot of traditional foods for the new year that have auspicious meaning for good luck, long life, and wishes for a good year. On the top panel is a display of two large mochi rice cakes, one on top of the other, with a small bitter orange on top, which could be, especially in Hawaii, you know, a tangerine. This display is called Kagami Mochi, translated to mirror rice cake. And the two mochi discs are supposed to symbolize the outgoing year and the incoming year. The human heart, yin yang, the moon and the sun, opposites. And the bitter orange called the dai right there, which it means generations. And it's said to symbolize the continuation of a family from generation to generation. And so let's talk now. Share with me about your thoughts on the integration of culture and food. I really want to hear from you. You know, about your own cultures, about your own experiences with food. Yes.
So my family, like my mom's side of the family, we're all from the Caribbean. So like during the holiday times, we cook a lot of like traditional like Caribbean dishes like stewed oxtails, stewed chicken, and whatnot. And it's just like they don't really have a lot of meaning, but it's like when we eat it, we feel closer to being home because obviously we live on the mainland and whatnot. So we eat that, and then like usually we call our family that is still in Barbados, and we just wish each other like Happy New Year's and whatnot. So.
Wow, and this is during New Year.
Yeah.
So
Like Christmas into New Year.
oh, good. So you have like a week-long celebration too.
Yeah.
Wow. So she added to the conversation about the Caribbean and how they eat oxtail stew and other different kinds of celebratory foods. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to hear from more people because, okay, go ahead, Kara.
So I'm Filipino.
Uh-huh.
And it's sort of similar. Like it's always, the holidays is always around food. And the one main thing that I remember younger that we always had pancit for New Year's for long life.
Oh, you know, because in Japan, the noodle, that's another food you're supposed to eat at midnight on December 31st. You're supposed to eat it to symbolize, getting in from the old year to the next year. So I wonder if pancit is like that too.
My mom calls me and tells me what she's eating and something.
Oh, in the Philippines. Or in the Philippines, she's, or just, but.
That's what she's doing.
Yeah. So interesting, huh? But it's that shape of the noodle. And then I was told too that if you had a bad year, you should bite and chew up that noodle. You know, don't slurp it, you know, don't keep it long. Make sure you chew it up so that the previous year doesn't come into the new year. So, and then you had you wanted to say something, huh?
Well, I'm Chinese, and every New Year's, my family will like kind of get together, and the day before, we'll make a bunch of wontons. So we'll have like a little assembly line, and then the next day, we'll all like come together during night, and then we'll have like saimin with wontons, and then we'll fry them the next days. It's really nice. It's a tradition that I hope to keep up with.
Yeah, wow. And how many wontons do you make? Like hundreds. Wow. Yeah. Cool. It's neat that we keep our culture through food. It's such a tangible way to keep culture. Anybody else want to add?
I just want to interrupt for a minute and say, speaking of food, we do have bottles of water and little cookies over there. Feel free to help yourselves. Just we ask that in this wonderful new space you be neat and leave only memories behind.
You know, if you want to, we could take a break if you want to grab something, because this is a talk story session. Shall we do that? And then we can continue on too. So people can be walking and picking up water or cookies, and then, yes, let's hear from you.
So I'm born and raised on Guam, and I moved to Hawaii for college, and I feel that there's so much threads that connect, that is so similar that it feels like I don't want to say like, oh yeah, I'm born and raised here, but it just feels like home here. And Guam is also like melting pot. It's close to Asia. There's a lot of Filipinos, Chamorros, Micronesians, and coming here, it didn't feel alienated. I didn't feel alienated at all. Like the food, that's what's outside home. So coming together and all that.
Wow, what is a typical Guamanian food or food from Guam?
Rice, barbecue. Oh, you guys eat barbecue good here.
Nice, thank you for sharing about Guam. Yes.
I'm Filipino too. Half on my dad's side, it's full 100% Filipino, and my grandma, she will cook. My family's really small. There's only 3, so my mom, my dad, and me. But my grandma, she will cook huge portions. That's enough to feed like a 10-person family for like 2 weeks. And so it'll be in our fridge like during New Year's, and it's always during big holidays. So like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, it's all like that. And I also have pancit is my favorite Filipino dish too. It's my favorite.
It's so cool that we're learning together, because that's what this box is here. This is called osechi ryori, which is New Year's celebratory food. And so the mother of the family, the grandmother, prepares all this food in nice lacquered boxes days before. So then during New Year's, they're not supposed to cook it all. They're supposed to just, you know, yeah. And so it reminds me like your family. Like you don't have to cook it all for like 2 weeks. How nice.
And it wasn't until I got into college, I was very distant from like my Filipino cultural side, even though it's half of what I am. And it wasn't until I got into college and took like a course about Filipino histories when I got a lot more into it, because I'm more close on my family side, like the Hawaiian and Japanese and Chinese and Portuguese side. And so it's a big mix of a bunch of different food in my family, like just a bunch of different recipes, and a lot of spam. A lot of spam. Wow.
That is a real food for Hawaii. And then, you know, I just got to talk about it too. You know, in Japan, they have spam musubi too, but it's really nicely packaged. Like you know, like here you buy it and you kind of think, oh, was this made in a certified kitchen? You know, kind of thing, or was it just some, you know, like, but then in Japan, it's like it has its own label and packaging, and then they have all different kinds, like egg and spam and I don't know, some kind of vegetable and spam, all kinds, you know. So yeah, it's cool that they took it. And I wonder, but it's something about Hawaii, right? That it's a spam musubi is wrapped up in saran wrap, you know, plastic wrap. That's so typical of Hawaii. So that's a nice thing too. So What else? So she's so Katsu Goto is here with his mother, helping her out, and she's saying, "Don't forget, you and Sekijiro need to go to Uncle's house to pound mochi at daybreak tomorrow." So that's another cultural practice, pounding mochi, and I think people in Hawaii, families in Hawaii, do it more than in Japan already now. Yeah, because in Japan they buy the osechidori from the department store. They buy it for like sometimes hundreds of dollars. Depending on you could get the deluxe model with shrimp and crab and lobster, and then you can get the budget model too. But yeah, so then I think mochi pounding is such a big thing here in Hawaii. So that's a neat thing that we continue on here in Hawaii. And then she's saying, okay, that's a good boy. She's reminding him. She still thinks of me as a young child. And he's saying, almost there, finally done. What is the kind of relationship or family norm being portrayed here? Yeah, just say it.
I guess they have a really close relationship, but like she still kind of like babies him a lot. So like he obviously in the story he wants to go out into the world and make a name for himself and whatnot, but his mom especially just wants him to stay there and just be her child.
Yeah, and I think a lot of families feel like that too, right? All mothers feel like that too. And so I kind of wanted to build that relationship between Katsu and his mother so that when he does leave Japan, we sort of feel that emotional pain, that happens. And that happens in many migrant families. So much of migration is about leaving your home country and coming to a new place. And it is painful because you're leaving behind your family, your country, and who watched the movie Elemental? Because I just watched it, and so it's about these elements, and they don't mix, but the fire and the water eventually have a relationship and get married. But it's a migration story. It really is touching, and it really kind of hit home on the fact that they had to leave their home country. Seemed like Eastern Europe or somewhere, and then just that breaking of culture and home and family. So I kind of wanted to include that. And so we can go on to the next slide. Okay, so a little bit more with Katsu Goto's relationship with his mother, So then now it's the New Year's holidays over. So Katsu, now that the New Year's holidays over, I have something I need to talk to you about. Remember Mrs. Nakayama from the church ladies group? She has a niece. Look, isn't she pretty? She's 18 years old, very smart, did well in school, and helps take care of her grandparents. She's a hard worker and is never sick. Mrs. Nakayama told her parents that you have a good job, you're the oldest son, you need to start thinking about settling down and your own kekkonshiki, your own marriage. So I'm trying to set the stage, for this breaking, because he has his dreams and she wants him to settle down, like most families, right? And you want your son, especially your oldest son, to live close by because you depend on him. And actually, Katsu Goto was born Katsu Kobayakawa. He had to, because he was the oldest, he couldn't leave Japan to come to Hawaii. He had to actually change his name, with the government records, with the family registry in order to come. And that's why he changed his name to Katsu Goto. So then, she was depending on him to stay around, to take care of her, and her husband, to take over the family property. And then what a shakeup he caused, in order to come. So he's saying, "Oh, mother, I need to tell you something, and she's like thinking in her own world, right? Don't tell me you already have someone, she's kind of hoping that. And then he's saying, oh, the government is signing people up for the kanyaku imin. I'm going to Hawaii. And she's like, well, you can't leave. You know, you're my firstborn son. You can't leave me. So just in a few short panels, you know, I wanted to convey that kind of breaking of this relationship, of this closeness, of this family that so many migrants have to go through in order to move to a new place. And not just in the past, but even now. You know, so much of migration is happening now too, because of war, because of economic situations, because of politics. And you know, the picture bride. Okay, so anyway, we can talk about this too, because I kind of really wanted to. Let's see. Let's see. So I wanted to discuss on this page marriage as a social construct, or what happened to this? Or, you know, like the qualities of a good wife, you know, because, you know, she said, okay, she's a hard worker, she's never sick, and all of that. So, and then a relationship between a mother and son, you know, which you kind of did. But let's talk about marriage as a social construct and qualities of a good wife. I want to hear from you guys. Yeah. So. Come on, talk story with me.
You have to be very good at housekeeping. You have to know how to cook, how to take care of children, pretty much how to serve others except yourself.
Exactly, right? And so much of that could still be, you know, we're still living it too, huh? Yeah. So, anybody else?
I like how the mom has it all planned out already.
Yeah. She's an on it mother.
I think a good trait to have in a wife is to be able to grow with that person. Not like trying to find the perfect person, like stressing all over like perfection, but being able to be with that person and grow with them over time. That's what makes a good relationship in general.
Wow. Hey, are you single? And do we have single girls around here? She sounds like awesome. To grow and mature, that you're not perfect when you come into the relationship. Yes. Wow, such wisdom. Anybody else want to discuss this page? Or this one?
I just noticed that, you know, they have a very respectful relationship with each other, that, you know, he's almost hating to tell her that, you know, he needs to go, but he's still very respectful. He's not saying.
Right. And in the few pages in the beginning of the graphic novel, you know, he tells his father right away. But his father tells him, well, don't tell your mother until after New Year's, you know, just to give her that nice holiday and not have to deal with it. Okay, we're moving on then. Okay, so most of the early Japanese immigrants to Hawaii were single men, and they wanted to marry Japanese women. So although the picture brides industry, you know, especially between the Japanese community in Hawaii, took place almost 20 years after Katsu Goto's story. You know, I really wanted to include it because I feel that the women were so essential to the settling of the Japanese community in Hawaii. Because when they married these women, you know, they couldn't own property because they weren't U.S. citizens. But then after America was annexed in 1898, then their children could own property. And that was so essential to saying, hey, I'm not going to go back to Japan after I've made my money. I'm going to stay here. This is my life now. This is where I belong. This is where I have my children. And so the children were so essential. So I really wanted to include this picture bride story because it's such a big part of the Japanese history in Hawaii. And a lot of times these pictures were, you know, taken years earlier, sometimes decades. So so then I kind of added a little bit of humor because he's in his store and the woman comes in, she's a picture bride, and they're discussing, you know, who she married, and then he's saying, oh, he's really a good man. And he goes, yes, you know, but so old. Nothing like the picture he sent me. And then maybe he is a little older than this photograph. And then she's like, but this looks like it was taken 20 years ago, you know. And that was a really real occurrence, you know, in the past, you know. So a lot of these young women, 18, 19-year-old girls, you know, from Japan, married men that could be their fathers or even older, you know, and how difficult that was because, you know, they're not with their families, and they're in a new place, and they're married to this old man and expected to have children. So I wanted to talk about this cultural practice, but, you know, in a kind of in a modern way too, you know. So it's still going on too. You know, there's still, you know, if you look on the internet, you could find, you know, like getting a wife from the Philippines, you know, or getting a wife from Thailand or from Russia or something like that. It's still going on. And also, you know, like dating services, is that something like this too? In that, yeah, and like catfishing too, or like portraying yourself a little better looking than what you really are, or accomplishments. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. In the past or in now too, and you know, what's going on currently now, you know, with Instagram and everything.
Talk about the East Asia generation, so there's a lot of difference. I mean, it was the families that arranged the marriage. And I thought the purpose, because you never seen them because they're overseas, so the purpose was the picture was for the identification when they got off the ship to, like, you know, because they never met them before.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the only way they could maybe find each other.
Not so much like a dating service, it was kind of an ID thing.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Thank you. And for a lot of these women, you know, once they arrived and went through immigration, they just had a mass ceremony. You know, like just, okay, like everybody just get married, you're married, and that's it, you know. So, yes, it was an identification service too. That's right. But you know, what about now? You know, when you're on Facebook or Instagram or I guess TikTok or whatever too, is that something that is still being done? You know, portraying yourself in a better light. Yeah. Did anybody experience anything like that and care to share? But do you not have to talk about names? Yes.
Unfortunately, it happened to me at one point, and you know, he just like really portrayed this like guy that was like in the military. He was stationed in Japan at the time, and I was like fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. But then he came clean after a while. I was like, something's not adding up. Like, why are you not telling me? Like, he came clean after a while, but came clean in the sense that he was an older guy. He was like a different like race in general. So it was. Yeah.
Wow. And so after he came clean, then what happened?
I blocked him.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, I was like, I appreciate you coming clean, but I'm not talking to you anymore. So then I blocked him. So I was nice about it.
So did he have like a nicer photo on? And I don't know, how did you like keep up with the relationship for a long time? Or?
I don't know. I should have known from the get-go. First of all, he posed as like a Japanese person, like, not Japanese, I'm sorry, white, like he was white in the military and whatnot. But the part that like started to like not make sense was like his English. His English wasn't like, it was like very, very broken English. At first he spoke like really good English, but then it started just getting choppy and choppy from there. I'm like, something's not adding up. So, but I kind of gave him like an ultimatum. I was like, if you don't tell me who you are, I'm just gonna like report you and whatever. So he ended up telling me who he was, and
Oh, well, are you better off now then?
yeah.
Yeah, so interesting, huh? And so glad that you could block him and then go on with your life and not be like these women who, I don't know how they would even think about going back to their homeland. You know, they had to just stick it out, or, you know, there was even divorce was not a real thing, you know. It was really, really a hard situation for so many. Yeah. Anybody else about this topic here? Yes.
It's not my story, but my grandfather's cousin, she was a mail order bride from Samoa, and she got married to this Filipino man in the Philippines that would send her letters of like pictures of him that was like 20 years ago.
Wow.
So when she finally got like sent to the Philippines and found out everything, it was kind of like already set. Like she ended up becoming like his wife and stuff, and ended up getting a lot of kids, and I got to meet her and talk to her before she passed, and now I know like a lot of cousins from that side.
Wow. So
It kind of was a good story for her.
oh, she ended up and found love in a family, and
Yeah, so she ended up staying with him. She got his last name and everything, and yeah, ended up like a good relationship.
oh,
That's good.
thank you for sharing about that. And it turned out to be a good situation, and created a family and a dynasty. Maybe sounds like there's a lot of kids. So yeah. Wow, neat. You know, because also, you know, arranged marriage too is not always a real negative thing. You know, so many countries around the world still do that, and even in Japan still, you know, they and sometimes that works out really well because it's your parents or your parents' family, you know, that really knows the two, you know, the woman and the man, or and then they think that it's a good match, and they create that match. And you know, a lot of other countries, cultures, you know, India and everything, and can be really successful too. So what do you think about that? Do you think we still have a place for that, arranged marriage? Yeah.
I know that they do it in like India. They do it.
Yes, yeah. I always think of, you know, the Big Bang Theory. Did you guys watch that? Big Bang Theory? You know, and the Rajesh, his family, he's here in the U.S. in California. He's an academic, but his family was always trying to set up a marriage for him from the home country. Anyway, okay, let me go on. Okay, on this page it's a social economic construct, in that you know, the Japanese created in Hawaii early on as a necessity, because no banks would lend money or let Japanese or other cultures too, other people, you know, take out loans from their banks. And so what the Japanese did, and I'm sure other cultures did too, was create their own money lending pool, made out of you know, maybe about a dozen people in the community. They pool their money, and then if somebody needed the money, they would lend it to them. So that's called a tanomushi, to provide loans to its members. And so Goto became friends with Bunichiro Onome, an immigration official who was recovering from beriberi in Honoka'a and had taken up coffee farming. And in February 1888, the government granted Onome a permit to open a store. And, but then Onome wanted to return back to Japan or visit. I think he ended up staying there. He transferred the permit to Goto. And so that's how Goto came to have a store, you know, in Hawaii, in Honoka'a. And he was one of the first ones to do so. And probably, you know, I'm not sure. He might not have been the first one in Hawaii, but of course the first one in Honoka'a. And so, you know, just that kind of, anybody can talk about that maybe in your culture, if you have something like that. If you needed money, who gives you that money? Do your parents do, or the family? I wanna hear from you. You know, if you. Well, most people could probably, if you have a job, you could get a loan now from the bank. So maybe it's not as necessary anymore. So.
I don't know if this is like a completely Filipino thing or it might just be on like my dad's side. But like ever since I was really little, like whenever I would see my grandparents on my dad's side, they would give me like $20 bills because I would see them very rarely. Like, that's a normal? Yeah. Okay. And so like during Christmases and stuff, they'll put like money in cards, and that was about it because that was kind of their way of showing love, like on my grandparents' side, because they're Filipino immigrants from the Philippines, and they worked on the plantations together and stuff.
Yeah. Did they put it in a nice little envelope?
No, it was kind of just like here.
Oh.
That was about it. Because like they were busy, they used to run like a shave ice truck here, and yeah.
Oh, cool. Cool to learn about the different cultures, because in Japan, New Year's is when Japanese family, you know, grandparents give to grandchildren, or aunts give to their family members, and they put it in a nice little envelope. So they sell those kinds of envelopes. You know, instead of a Christmas card, it's a New Year's envelope to give out money to the younger people in their family.
Kind of like now GoFundMe.
Yeah.
People help you with whatever needs you have.
Yeah, that's really kind of like how social media and those dating apps too, we just talked about. GoFundMe is a way that, and then not just your family, yeah, it's like you can you know, enlist the whole community or the whole world even because of the internet. That is so true. And then in that sense, a GoFundMe is kind of cool, huh? In that if you need to raise money for a project, you can kind of like just put it out there, and people will support you. Yeah. Good. Yes.
You know, I think a lot of people don't realize that philosophy of individuals helping individuals and businesses helping businesses, that's how Hilo was formed. My understanding is that, you know, a lot of generational businesses that are still around relied on that to bring up our community. So to improve the community as a whole, businesses would help each other so that everybody can prosper.
Oh, really nice. Thank you for sharing that.
And then going back to food too, in the plantation days, a bunch of the cultures, like a bunch of Asian cultures, would do fusion food together, and that's how the Hāmākua was made. Like I believe it was Japanese and Chinese combined it together with like the red pork from Chinese, and then they mushed it together, and then because people from Japan, they couldn't afford like the fresh fish to make actual like sushi and stuff, they used Spam instead because it was easier to afford. At least that's what I learned in like my Filipino class about like the local history and everything.
That makes sense. Spam is a lot cheaper than fish. Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, anybody else? I don't want to miss out. Yes.
Like going off what he said, when I first came to Hilo, I was like shocked by how like giving the community is here. And how everybody's always looking out for one another and whatnot, because where I'm from, nobody's like that at all. It's just like you you worry about yourself and everything else. But like here, it's like if you're in trouble or like if you need something, there's always somebody like willing to help you, um, no matter the situation. Honestly, whether it be like I don't know, just like needing some like basic necessities in your room, or like loaning some money, or going, or even them going to the grocery store and getting you some stuff, or like food if you don't have food because you don't have money. Like it's so like family oriented. Like even though you may not be like related to them, like, they will treat you like family. Like I fell in love with that.
Wow. Wow, are we lucky we're in Hilo now? It is. I do sense that too. And I have experienced that too. So thank you for sharing. Wow. Anybody else want to share about, how Hilo or this campus or took care of you, at some point in your life? Okay, we can go on. Okay. So, what time do we have? Okay. There are at least two social and cultural constructs that I wanted to introduce on this page 25 of the graphic novel. One is the importance of the male gender in many cultures throughout the world, including Asian and Japanese culture. So they're congratulating the birth of a son with the emphasis of Boys' Day, and which is celebrated on May 5. And in 1948, in Japan, the holiday was renamed Children's Day in an effort to be more gender inclusive. But it's still, and girls have their own festival too. It's March 3rd, which is Girls' Day, but it's called, Spring Festival Day, or let's see, Dolls Day, to try to not just name it Girls' Day. But then it's still considered for girls. And in this one, this Boys' Day, even though they named it Children's Day, it's still also considered a holiday for boys. So then they're saying, congratulations, a boy born in May, just in time for Boys' Day. Good, huh? And the Hawaiian Islands, as I mentioned earlier, was annexed to the United States. So, after that, they became U.S. citizens. Children born in Hawaii became U.S. citizens, and that helped the settling of the Japanese community. And then, so they're celebrating, and they're saying, hi, this isn't so bad, the plantation life, but they're in a good point right now, maybe not in the cane fields right now. Kind of reminds me of home, and they're saying, yeah, we've got good sake too, rice wine. And so I wanted to talk about that, but then let's talk about the gender, how a boy is so important, and I want to hear from you about that. Yes.
I heard in Japanese culture, the oldest son is usually the most spoiled one or something. I mean, that's what I heard. And I have this friend who's in a family where she takes care of her father, who's and they're Japanese, and her father is he's paralyzed, and her mom has cancer, and she gave up her personal life. I mean, she works full-time here in Big Island, but she gave her personal life to take care of her parents. She has an older brother who's the oldest, who they spoiled. They always treated him like he was royalty kind of thing, and so that it's just, that's what I hear. That used to be like the culture in the younger days, and it's sort of similar to Filipinos. If you're the boy, you're the oldest, you're like the favorite, and the one that kind of helps take care of the family. But in Filipino culture, you take care of the family. But I'm sorry, but from what I hear, the Japanese is like what they call them. I don't know. They call them offend anybody, but yeah, like the oldest son is usually the one that gets everything.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's true what you're saying. You know, in the past, they used to call the oldest son bochan. You know, that meant like the beloved, you know, firstborn son. You know, kind of thing. So, you know, it's interesting to hear that the Filipinos too. Yeah, that the males are still, that space, that position. What about other cultures? Oh yeah.
I know, so in a lot of cultures, it was like, especially in the olden days, the boys were seen as more important and allowed like access to education and a lot more resources than females. I know in my favorite book, Malala, there's a really cool scene where it's like the dad celebrating even though she's a female, whereas normally it would be like you're celebrating the birth of a boy, and he like helps allow her to get education, even though normally females that's taboo, and that's why there's that whole controversy where she gets shot by the Taliban.
Right. Oh, yes. So many cultures still place really emphasis on the males, on the boy in the family. Anybody else? Yes, back there.
No, just commenting on the page. So, you know, I like how you balanced it out. Everything is boy, and then you just put that nice
Well,
kind of gender neutralizes the whole page.
yeah, and then that's why I wanted the picture brides too, you know, to balance it out. Thank you for noticing that. Greatly appreciated. That's what we wanted to do, like, you know, this flower, very representative of Hawaii, and very kind of, you know, feminine or female on this page that is like, oh, boy, yes. Thank you for noticing that. A lot of the people, you know, when I give talks, they haven't mentioned that at all. So.
Well, I also noticed the balance on that other one. He tells her where he's going, and she says you can't leave. You could have made it hysterically big, but because she knows in the back of her mind he has his own dream, and he knows that in telling her that, she already knows that.
Wow.
So the balance in the page is perfect.
Oh, thank you.
You know, wasn't overly dramatic, but it caught the feeling.
Yeah. Oh, you know, I wish I had more time because almost every page is like that too, you know. Kind of like there's close-ups of the eyes, you know. There's close-up of these minor birds. Maybe I can talk about that. I have time for that. But let's see. I really wanted to touch upon this one though. Oh, and also, you know, I wanted to point out that sake too, you know, is somewhat, you know, a symptom of migration and colonization too. So just to point that out. And I'm gonna move forward because I really want to get to this. And then if we have time, we'll go to the others because we have only, you know, about 10 minutes left. So, we must include the culture of lynching. So we're going to fast forward a little bit so we can discuss this and take some time with it. Here's a depiction of the ambush and attack upon Katsu Goto according to court reports and interviews that was covered, you know, by the newspapers at that time. And although lynching was not common in Hawaii at the time, in fact, I'm not aware of another lynching in Hawaii. And it's really cool because I was contacted by New York University, a professor there who is creating an anthology of lynching. And then, so out of the blue, he contacts me and he says, could you write something for this anthology? You know, because, you know, and then I'm so pleased that his story will be in that anthology, you know, about, you know, this happened in Hawaii. You know, so it was a common social and political construct popular in the world and in the United States. It was an act of terror, often towards Black Americans in the South. But lynching, you know, happened a lot in many other countries too around the world. And And Dr. Gary Oki, oh, and this is the page, yeah. So dramatic, yeah. And I wanted to point that out too, that that was intentional too, you know, that that it covers 2 pages, you know, so that you have to turn it like this. There's some kind of engagement and interaction, and you have to pause, and you have to like, okay, you're reading, you know, horizontal, you know, like this, you know, and then here, okay, to look at it completely, I have to do this, and so that was intentional to make that dramatic point, you know, that this happened. So. So Dr. Gary Okihiro, you know, he said that, you know, in an interview with me that, and he's a very well-known scholar at Columbia University and Yale, and he said that a lynching is not a murder, not an execution, it is an act of terror. It is to teach the living a lesson, and that's why bodies were left. It was a lesson for those who ruled that they were in power and control, and it was a lesson for those who are subjected to rule, that they should not cross that line or aspire to be equal to those who rule. And that's a very harsh lesson, and that is terrorism. To inspire fear on the part of those dominated, to be quiet, to listen, to agree with the rulers. So, and you know, I appreciate him because he didn't mince words, you know, just kind of said it. It's an act of terror. And it was done in public places and not hidden away, you know, because it was a message to the community, not just to the person. It's more of a message to the community. And so let's talk about this. Kind of a deep one. You know, I thought we would have a few more slides to go through to work up to this one. But, you know, we've got just about 7 minutes left, so. Yes.
So it's really like stuff like this, because I'm from the East Coast, so stuff like this is really heavily talked about, like slavery and whatnot, and about lynching and whatnot. So when I was in high school, I took this African American history class where we learned about the subject of slavery and what the slaves went through in America during that time. And just learning about it, it just like, I knew, but I didn't realize how bad it actually was. So for like during class, like on one weekend, our teacher gave us an extra credit assignment, and the extra credit assignment was we were supposed to go to the movies and go watch the movie 12 Years a Slave. Now, I don't know if anybody watched that movie here. I've only watched it once, so that tells you like how strong the movie actually is. But there's a scene in the movie where I forgot the guy's name, but the guy, they actually portray him getting lynched in the movie. They literally have him hanging from a tree, the rope around him. He's still alive too, but the only way he stays alive is like the tip of his foot is literally stepping on a crate, like, and he's there for like I think like 3 days. They keep him there for 3 days, and he's still alive the whole entire time, just breathing slowly, like. So like this type of thing is just it. Once you learn about it, it's like it really like opens your eyes to how things used to be in America before we are now. So.
Or even in Hawaii, to think that this happened in Hawaii, you know, because Hawaii is, you know, praised as a multicultural melting pot, and so. But that's why, you know, I'm sharing these things, and because you know, at university we should be knowing about these things in the past. We should be informed and educated and know about these things. So, yeah, thank you for sharing. Yes, that was a powerful movie. Yeah.
Basically, in the movie, what happens is that there would be free black slaves in like the northern part of the United States. Everybody knows this. But what slave traders would do is that they would take those free black slaves to make them into slaves, and then put them into the South. And most of those black people that weren't free would just stay slaves forever. But he was one of the few Black people that was able to go back to the North with his family, and he was there for 12 years. So his kids were married and already had kids and whatnot, and his wife had gotten old and everything. So.
Yeah. Oh yes.
I kind of have the interesting perspective. My family, they all had children relatively late in life, and when I hear people talking about how their grandparents are still alive, my grandfather was a slave, and I'm the youngest one in my family. All my cousins are like in their 40s, and at family reunion, I remember we would talk about our family history, and the older people in our family, they would just talk about how people they knew, their family members, people that they grew up with, were lynched, and there were like at least 5 or 6 people in my family that were lynched, and that was just a normal thing back then.
Wow, and to be your age, but then as you said, your family had kids later, so that's why you have this really kind of close connection to those stories still. Wow. Wow, thank you for sharing. Greatly appreciated. Anybody else? Okay, we have a couple minutes. You can either ask a question, or I could show you like a couple more slides. Yes.
Sorry if you already explained this, but why did you choose to kind of black his eyes out?
You know, that was Avery's decision, you know? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and Avery was really good. Thank you for answering, because Avery was into manga. Yeah, or still is, you know, and so because he showed me one that without it and one with it, and I just said, oh, let's go with this one, you know, because we're going with the manga theme, because this whole, you know, this is kind of manga-ish, you know, and some of the characters look kind of childish too, and that whole genre. So then, yeah. Wow, thank you for that. He just said, he didn't explain that about manga, blocking the eyes. He just said, there's this choice or this choice, Patsy, you know, and then I was like, okay, let's go with that one, you know. So I learned something. Thank you.
I saw, it's one of the slides that you skipped over, but it was the one talking about, I believe, like the perfumes and stuff. I find that really interesting because I used to work at Daiso. I worked there for a year, the 1 year, and a lot of people who are visiting from Japan or who have just immigrated to Hawaii from Japan, they come to Daiso specifically to feel like they're still home, and they look for like the different trinkets and stuff. There's a lot of kitchenware at Daiso that they particularly normally only have in Japan, and it always makes them extremely happy, like just being in there. And so it was just, I found that interesting how it was like that back in the 1800s, and it's still kind of like that now.
Yeah, that's why his store did really well, very quickly, because you know he only opened his store for, you know, maybe a year or so, you know, not very long, you know, and because he stocked Japanese goods, and he brought them in from Honolulu too, on the ship, and he actually paid, you know, the store owner extra money to have all those goods hauled, you know. So it was interesting, you know, this guy who was profiting from Katsu Goto's success, you know, actually was part of the group that conspired to kill him, you know. Yeah. Yes.
No, just going through the novel, and I noticed a lot of the emotion in the book is pushed by how the eyes are drawn. And I think it's real fitting to end like that, where the eyes are just taken away, because it takes all the light that you see in the eyes.
Thank you.
Are you gonna, there's talk about a movie film being made about this?
Yeah, I've been working on that documentary film for a while. And we were like almost done already, but then in 2018, my filmmaker passed away. Yeah, and then, so it took a while, to find someone with the heart that I could work with at the budget that I have. And it took, and then COVID kind of hit too, And then, but I found someone, and his name is Ryan Kawamoto, and he's done quite a lot of documentary films, and so I'm excited. So before you go, I want to invite you to Katsu Goto Memorial Service, which is because this is part of some events this week, and the mayor has proclaimed this Katsu Goto Legacy Week. But on Saturday at 9 a.m., we're going to have a service to honor him, and it's going to be filmed by Ryan. So if you can come because I really want not just a few people. I want a group because I want to show that, his story is being honored and in this community.
Is it going to be in Hāmākua?
Yes, it's going to be Hāmākua, Hāmākua Jodo Mission, which is up Mauka side, the mountain side of the highway. So please come if you can, because a lot of people have told me, because there's so many things going on this Saturday. There's like, oh gosh, people are just listing off the fingers, like how many things going on this week, this Saturday.
How long is it going to go for?
Just an hour, and then after that we'll have a peace festival. But we were able to bring in a group from Oahu who did a musical called Peace on Your Wings about Sadako and the Thousand Cranes. So 3 of them are coming to sing 3 songs, for hope and uplifting and inspiration. So it's we're featuring them, and we're going to honor Katsu Goto with at his graveside. So please come at 9 a.m. at the Hāmākua Jodo Mission, and you have to turn left before you get to Honoka'a town, and then you have to it's a little hard, but then you can find it on Google Maps. Hāmākua Jodo Mission at 9 a.m. I really hope to see some of you there, so that we have a nice diverse group, and we won't be like filming you like on your face, but we're gonna just pan, and everybody's not gonna be recognizable unless you want to be recognized. But what I'm saying is that we're not gonna like really. It's more the audience. It's more a B-roll. Like this is what the community is doing. So, okay.